The chain. It's not just Fleetwood Mac. We all heard it. We were all promised Brexit would never break the chain. And here we are, 100,000 HGV drivers short, and with supermarkets warning that Britain could be facing shortages at Christmas. It's about now that they typically start stockpiling their festive wares. But Britain's roads are currently so deprived of lorries that if something doesn't change, we may all be looking forward to a meagre Christmas at the Cratchits. Pass me another slice of festive microwave lasagna, love. It tastes like sovereignty. Now, if you're of the Leave persuasion, I can hear you shouting in my head already. And look, I admit, you have a point. Britain's driver shortage isn't exclusively a consequence of Brexit. The industry's ability to recruit new drivers has also been impacted by the pandemic, with training and licence renewals suspended under restrictions and less new blood than usual coming into the trade as a result. We've also been hemorrhaging drivers for some time now, many of whom have been objecting to poor pay and working conditions for years. But we are still missing tens of thousands of European drivers, many of whom have no desire to sit in a lorry park in Kent for days on end dealing with the new burdensome admin of Brexit. And that is very much a direct consequence of our choice to leave. So no, Brexit is not the sole cause of this crisis, but it's certainly a key contributor. So how about you put the keyboard down, toddle down the stairs, go into the cupboard under the sink and pop out your JML Blue Step? That's it, Barry Brexiter. Fold it out, pop it up right on the kitchen floor. There, now you should just have enough clearance to get the fuck over yourself and finally start owning some of this completely fucking unnecessary mess. Make no mistake, a mess is what this is, and it's one that's been compounded by a government who have failed to plan for any of it. In perhaps one of the most tone-deaf responses they've issued yet, the Home Office this week said this in reply to businesses airing their mounted concerns. The British people repeatedly voted to end free movement and take back control of our immigration system, and employers should invest in our domestic workforce instead of relying on labour from abroad. Now, there are many obvious holes in that fucking colander of a statement, not least of which is the simple fact that the government's own COVID restrictions have actively prevented employers investing in our domestic workforce. We only came out of lockdown a month or so ago, and training 100,000 lorry drivers in that time is, to offer the biggest understatement of the century, a big ask. But the most galling hole of all is the old shtick about us repeatedly voting to end free movement. We voted leave or remain. That was literally it. Regardless of which one of those options you went for, it's not unreasonable to suggest that the logical assumption was that the people in charge would at least have enough competency to hammer out the details, and that they'd be able to do it without costing us the tens of thousands of European HGV drivers we rely on and causing serious disruption to our national supply chain as a result. In fact, we didn't even have to assume it. We were told over and over that the deal was oven ready and the transition would be smooth and simple. Lots of us didn't believe that, of course, but as much as I'd love to jump on that fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square and scream, "We fucking well told you so!" through a megaphone, it wouldn't actually achieve much in fixing this clusterfuck. So what can be done? Well, the obvious and simplest solution, although it wouldn't be enough to plug the whole gap in the workforce, is to relax the visa rules for HGV drivers. It wouldn't fix all the customs issues at the border, but it would potentially entice enough European drivers back to ease some of the strain. In pursuit of convincing us all that Brexit was a price worth paying, however, the government seemed pretty reluctant to do this, which is understandable. Admitting that the same cheap foreign labour you always claimed was undercutting your British workers is, in fact, actually an essential part of your entire system would be pretty embarrassing for any Brexit-supporting politician. So the government are instead looking elsewhere to plug the gaps in our labour market, and the first place the Home Office has suggested is our prisons. Pilot schemes have been announced to train newly released prisoners as HGV drivers, and plans are in motion to expand the role of prison labour in our meat processing industries. That's another sector who have been hit hard by labour shortages. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of ex-prisoners being offered meaningful routes back into work at all. Any scheme that helps serving inmates get qualifications that allow them to lead reformed lives out of the system gets a thumbs up from me. But it's not yet clear just how these schemes will genuinely benefit anyone, other than a private sector profiteering from yet another source of cheap labour. There is a world of difference between prisoners doing community work that gives back to the society they've harmed and exploitation of them that only benefits private companies. Private companies that could instead be attracting new workers with, I don't know, better pay and conditions. Which one of the two options we're going to get remains to be seen. Which is why I've come here to Earth Alpha Echo Indentured Servitude 11. Here, Preeti Patel has been given full autonomy to manage our prison workforce exactly as she sees fit, and she's handled the tricky ethical dilemma with her typical level of empathy. The prison population has been fully utilised to really reap the tangible benefits of Brexit. In our cities, convicts work in chain gangs to maintain salt farms harvesting the tears of liberal metropolitan elites. And in sovereignty mines all over the country, like this one here in the Pennines, prisoners work 20-hour shifts, digging the meaningless hole ever deeper in search of something utterly intangible and ultimately worthless.
Keep at it, you scum! We're not paying you to... Well, we're not paying you at all. But the British people repeatedly voted to end free movement, so this is what you fucking get!
Inspiring, isn't it? And there's no chance of Christmas getting cancelled in a place like this. I can practically taste the goodwill to all men in the air. I'm Tom King, reporting for IC News.